Hey everyone, happy Thursday. I hope you're all enjoying your week in the warmer temperatures. We've had some massive storms here the past couple weeks, and we're now getting temperatures in the upper 90s, which is actually pretty warm for us in West Virginia. But I'm happy to finally not be freezing anytime I step outside. So this week's posting is super interesting to me because I work in budgets daily, and oftentimes I just sort of operate within the budget without thinking about how the budget came to be or thinking ahead to what I might need in the future, which is sort of important. So the first question, if you were a budget manager for your unit, which budget model would you prefer to be used at your institution? Explain why it would be the most useful for your unit and your institution. Also describe any concerns you might have about this budget model. So I'm going to answer this question twice because I have varying perspectives on it, and I know you just want to listen to me talk. So first, I'm going to address it as if I were the budget manager for WVU Parkersburg as a whole. And to answer this question, to kind of get some clarity on this, I sat down with the chief financial officer at my institution. Her name is Alice, and she's well known as one of the best financial managers in higher education for community colleges. So she's really good at her job, and we're really lucky to have her. Where many colleges in the state of West Virginia have faced yearly staffing cuts, we have held strong with a surplus, even with unavoidable full-time enrollment numbers going down due to COVID. So I sort of asked Alice to explain our budgeting process and why we choose to do it that way. So a little bit of background. I am a previous program coordinator and a current director, so I've had the opportunity to manage 3 of the college's budgets. And like I said, I just sort of did it, didn't really put much thought into it. So currently I manage the budget for the Center for the Teaching and Professional Excellence, which is a donation and grant funded budget. And the donation portion is funded through the foundation, and the grants come in the form of Perkins fundings. So, and I've attached these for you guys to look at so you can kind of see what I work with. But I am fortunate that my budget doesn't get highly scrutinized as long as I don't overspend. So the donation was a large one, and it's endowed, so we make a point to only spend the interest from this account. And in this situation, I prefer to use incremental budgeting. My costs are pretty static year to year, as long as we don't overlook COVID, and my basic objectives don't really change. However, my budget is only a small portion of the WVUP budget. And according to Alice, our budget is based on the needs of each administrative function. And those functions first create their own budget, kind of similar to what I did above. And then they send their budgets to the finance department, which Alice leads. And then the finance department looks at the requests in comparison to what the function provides in revenue, and then revenue provided by tuition, and then other revenue sources we may have. So grants, donations, fundraisers, whatever. Each function is allowed to attend a budget hearing where they can justify their request and also see, with complete transparency, what it costs to operate the college, whether we have 1 student or 10,000 students. So those costs remain static, and we have to consider those as budget managers. We have to keep the lights on. And I think this is almost a hybrid of incremental budgeting and zero-based budgeting. And if I were somehow woefully put in charge of the college's budget, I would continue operating in this manner. It allows people to justify what they want, and it also brings total transparency to where our money is being spent, and I think that's incredibly important. So if I were to critique it, I think it does make some academic units feel as if they get less money, but that's simply because they don't bring in as many students or have as many needs, which that's how it is. To me, budgeting has to be a logical decision, and the academic units with the most revenue should have the opportunity to continue spending their revenue and upgrading their programs. But I also work partially with the WVU at Parkersburg Foundation. And in my role there, I get to do lots of really cool tasks. I plan events, attend ribbon cuttings, volunteer in the community, grant scholarships, and I also oversee the budget for the foundation. Of course, that's with the oversight of the finance committee and within our board of directors, so it's not me out there just willy-nilly doing what I like. And I've also attached our budget from the fiscal years 19-20 and then our upcoming 22-23. So we're working with the same amount of funds within our admin budget. But I was able to reallocate some of that funding to allow more spending on special events since the previous events were revenue bearing. In this case, we choose to use what I would call probably performance-based budgeting. We generally know what the budget is available based on interest levels, but there could always be more money available. We just have to be willing to go after it and prove that we need money maybe in events instead of somewhere else. So if I want to have more events, I have to prove that my events are successful through increased revenue and attendance. But it's always important to note with nonprofit work, it's not always about revenue. And we can measure in terms of engagement, awareness, and attendance as well. So I did want to note that something we say is that it's nonprofit. It doesn't mean no profit, and we still have to consider our bottom line. Okay, so moving on to the second question. Using the framework provided by Barr and McClellan in Chapter 3 that lists 5 purposes for the budget, evaluate the budget model you selected. Okay, so I'm going to evaluate the performance-based budgeting model of the foundation because that's the one that I work with daily, and I feel like I have the most direct influence over, and if I'm going to understand it, it might as well be the one that I work with. So the first purpose is putting business strategy into operation. Cool. Okay. So to complete this portion, I feel like I have to do it through the lens of a specific institution. So like I said, I'm just going to use the foundation. The budget is a way to enact the mission of an organization through numbers. So the foundation operates under the mission statement of the college, which is WVU Parkersburg provides life-changing and accessible education opportunities in a safe and supportive environment. The performance-based budgeting model allows us to complete the day-to-day tasks through our admin budget, but our scholarship budget, which totals over $11 million, which is really awesome for a community college, that's what really allows us to fulfill our mission and the mission of the college. We supplement the already lowest in the state bachelor's degree tuition for the college with more scholarships, and over 75% of our students graduate debt-free. So we're very proud of that, and that's really awesome. And that's all because of budgeting. So performance-based budgeting is also great for allocating resources. As Alice said, some line items have to be paid no matter what, and then we can work with what's left over. With performance-based budgeting, there is space to determine which functions are best for the institution and then sort of go from there. If a program is costing money and not graduating students, it might be time to reevaluate their budget. Performance-based budgeting would be a great way to provide incentives if the budget manager allows the surplus funds to stay at the unit level. So by doing this, the units may also choose to be more prudent with their spending and not make unnecessary purchases, which kind of happens at the end of the year. People are like, well, let's buy, X, Y, and Z because we still have money to spend. Then they could seek that same budget the next year, given that they're performing well, and have excess funds the following year. But I will say that giving control is a double-edged sword in budgeting, as autonomy allows people to be happier and make good decisions, but we don't want so little control on an institutional level that we miss any major errors, overspending, or maybe unethical or illegal activity. In performance-based budgeting, I think there could be a nice mixture of control, though, and once the unit kind of projects where they're going to spend their money, it should be their choice to actually complete the spending. However, I always think there should be checks and balances, and several signatures should be required before making major purchases. Providing a means of communication to internal and external audiences via budget is a huge part of transparency in higher education. I think the budget should be available to those who ask for it, and definitely to the board of governors, your board of directors, whatever that is, your governing body. And performance-based budgeting should be able to back up the why of each allocation with numbers, and that should provide a solid explanation should it get questioned. So there shouldn't be any loose ends out there that we can't really explain off. All right, so we're going to discuss the final concept of academic capitalism. And first, I'd like to say that I feel like Adams is a bit out of touch with higher education and the true needs of higher education. So Barr and McClellan state that needs differ from each institution. And I couldn't agree more with that. Whereas Adams seems to be longing for the days of class separation through the gatekeeping of higher education. And that, like I said, community college, that doesn't sit well with me. So he said any of them would be subverted if tied to some limited goal. They should be in the service of the human enterprise and the healthy development of the culture as a whole. So truthfully, sometimes the healthy development of a culture is funding workforce programs that provide these life-changing careers for our students after graduation. And sometimes that requires cutting money from other places. And sometimes that's humanities, like art programs or things like that. And I think that taking an economic approach is absolutely warranted and necessary. Especially in today's economy, higher education is experiencing major upheavals, and we have to do what's best for our students and our faculty. And like I said, I work at a community college. I work with students who need this degree to get a job as soon as they graduate. They don't have time. They're not usually going on to a master's program. But anyway, as a budget manager, I would hold the budget hearings, and I'd want to be incredibly transparent about the budget so people could see where we're graduating the most employed students post-graduation, and that's where the money needs to go. If other programs justify their needs with proof of student employment, then that would be considered as well. Programs should seek grant funding. That would obviously be encouraged to supplement with that. And if, so they could supplement for not bringing in the tuition dollars. I can't say I entirely agree with all the concepts of responsibility-centered budgeting, but I do see the purpose in analyzing where the money is coming from and where it is going. Like, for example, we have a nursing program that graduates lots of nursing students. It's hard to get into. We have to put a lot of money back into that. Nursing programs cost a lot, but they also bring a lot of money in. So I do see the benefits and, of course, some of the downfalls. So I hope you guys have a great Thursday. Thanks for listening, and I'm excited to see everyone else's discussion post. Thanks. Bye.